G'day guys, welcome back to SuperCoach for DR and welcome to a special double team preview today. Before I introduce my special guest, I've got my co-host as always, Spills. How you going, legend? You feeling a little bit seedy or a little bit fresher this week, mate?
Oh, much more fresh, mate. I've been on my best behaviour the last couple of weeks, so I've got to be because of the surgery that's coming up. So, I'm definitely not going to be misbehaving a whole lot. So, I'm in good form and I'm ready for this one. So, yeah, really keen to dissect what Dan's got to say. Obviously, the Freo Tragic, we all know him from Twitter, and got a what is a bloody trifecta of team previews going on today. So it's a busy one, and I'm bloody looking forward to it, lads.
We do have the double. We have the Sydney GWS double team preview. And as I said, we have a very, very special guest. Now, I've known this bloke for a fair while now through one of my absolute favourite SuperCoach website, supercoachtalk.com. That's where it all really started for me. He's a veteran SuperCoacher, writer, as I mentioned, for supercoachtalk.com, a Freo man at heart, but currently living in Bondi. So has a fair bit of knowledge about GWS and the Swannies. So please welcome to the channel, Freo Tragic, my man, Dan Mashman. How's things, mate? Thank you very, very much for coming on with us.
Thanks for the kind words, DR. G'day, Spills. How are you?
Yeah, good, mate.
Yes, happy to be here. Love talking Supercoach. Living up in New South, not many people talk AFL, so I'm usually online doing that. But yeah, any chance I get to talk Supercoach or AFL, I'm happy to be involved. Yeah.
Now, we appreciate you coming on, mate. You can see in the background there that you are very, very much a Freo man. And after this team preview, we will be getting into the Freo one. So really, really excited to get into that. But look, tell us, you live in Bondi, mate. What's the lifestyle like? Do you get out for a surf? How is life up that way, bud?
Yeah, it's good. I live probably 150 metres from the beach. So you can just toddle down there and have a swim and come back. And gets pretty busy on the weekends. It's a bit of a crazy town. Lots of lovely young ladies walking around and stuff. So it's put on the eye. But like get out and surf occasionally. And it's just a good lifestyle. I love it. I don't even have a car anymore. I sold my car because cars are a nightmare in Sydney. So I borrow my mate's car. I've got my flatmate's car if I need it. But I love it. I love living up here, and I won't be going back to WA anytime soon, I don't think. I love it up here, but it's just different, Yeah.
I reckon that'd be up your alley, Spills. I could see you as a bit of a Bondi man.
Come up.
Not with the bank account I've got, lads. Maybe one day down the track if I can save my funds, but I'll just stick to Central Victoria for now. And if I ever win the lottery or some sort of bizarre bet where I rack up a couple $1 million, I might invest in a nice house on the beach, but or a garden shed, depending on what you can get in Bondi for $2 million. But
we get a letterbox and a water feature.
Yeah,
we get a bird bath and a letterbox in there.
Set up the tent next to that.
I tell you, the rents are pretty outrageous up here. But like I said, you can walk everywhere. Got the shops around the corner, the bottle shop, my little triangle that I visit most days. But yeah, it's good. I like it.
That's elite.
Fantastic, mate. Fantastic. Well, look, we might start off with the Swannies. Look, had a wonderful year last year. Obviously, made it all the way to the grand final, but bitterly disappointed. I've got a couple of really close friends and a mad Swanee supporters actually went to the game. I think they're still scarred to this day. So, look, a great season, I think. If you make it to the grand final, you've got to call it a successful season. A bit of a sour taste in some supporters' mouths, but look, you can't complain too much, I don't think. But they did have a practice match yesterday against my boys, the Lions. Went down by 45 points, but did any of you fellas get to watch the game? Dan, did you get to check this one out yourself, mate?
Yeah, I watched some of it. The camera work was pretty shocking, but
terrible,
and the commentating was like some B-grade race caller. But anyway, apart from that, there was a few takeaways from that game. Just one thing on the Swannies, I think with their young list, they really overachieved making the grand final last year. I mean, they pipped Collingwood by a point in that game. They played out of their skins until that grand final. So I wouldn't put too much weight on that grand final. I think they've got their best. I mean, even with Buddy getting on, and maybe it's his last year or whatever, but I think their best years are still ahead of them with that young midfield, Logan McDonald and stuff developing forward. I still think they've got a very formidable list for the next upcoming time. But yeah, out of that game yesterday, not too much. Goulden got a heap of CBAs, which was kind of unexpected, but you never know what Horse is going to do. Mills played out of position again, making him hard to pick as a primo. But who knows? Maybe that's just a practice game thing. But I just got a feeling he's, with the leadership stuff and everything, he's going to be a little bit. He'll be a little bit harder to nail down a single role. He's just going to move around. He's going to be very unselfish in his play and hard to pick as a primo. Yeah.
Interesting. Spills, have you watched the game yet, mate, or were you a little bit busy yesterday?
I've been pretty busy. Like, worked pretty much all day yesterday, and pretty much knocked off and went to the pub for dinner with the lads, and which was pretty good. But yeah, as a result, not so good for SuperCoach. Didn't see basically any game. I caught the first 3 quarters of Essendon versus Gold Coast, which was very refreshing to watch. It's good that we got footy back, but it's just been on at the worst possible time for me. Like, I'm always out doing stuff during the day, so I just haven't really got much of a chance to catch on, which is quite annoying because there's not much information I can provide. But yeah, Sydney-wise, I still have no Sydney players in my team currently. I'm not sure if that's going to change or not by the end of this pod, but yeah, I'm definitely keen to dive into it and discuss each player. So yeah, it should be good anyway. I'm looking forward to it.
All right, well, we might look. We'll quickly skip over defence. There's a couple of names here that I've got, but I don't know how relevant they'll be. We've got the Lizard, 475,300. Loved to watch him run like an absolute maniac, limbs all over the joint. That's the most entertaining thing about watching Lizard play. But SuperCoach-wise, don't know if he's going to be too relevant. Florent, 372,900. Took a few kick-ins, so maybe some extra points there, but actually went backwards in average last year. In 2021, 76. Last year was only the 68. So I assume that probably goes up a little bit this year with some extra kick-ins possibly, but don't know how relevant he's going to be. Got Braden Campbell, 294,100. Had a bit of a nothing game after being apparently close to best on in an intra-club a couple of weeks ago. And then we've got the old man here, Seagull Jake Lloyd, 507,300. Took the first kick in. Personally, I think his Uber premium days are behind him. Season averages from 2018 to 2022, 112, 109, bang, up to 122 again, but then 108, 92. So a pretty fair drop-off. So, boys, I'm not sure if you've got any thoughts on these Sydney defenders. Dan, what do you think about the great Seagull? Has he still got some life left in him, or?
Yeah, I think he might sort of jump out of the blocks all right if Blakey's, had that interrupted thing. Pre-season, so he could, but I just don't like backing in the 30 pluses really, like you'd rather go for a bit of youth and someone with a bit of a trajectory. It also looks like the Swans aren't mucking around with the ball in defence anymore. They've also got, even their talls are all pretty good users, like the McCartan brothers can kick the ball. You've got Rampy down there. You've got a lot of guys down there now that, there's not too many guys that just, won't use the ball if they get an opportunity. Whereas Lloyd, when he was doing his best work, was just running past those bigger guys and taking basically every possession out of defence. So I just can't see him doing that anymore. He might surprise, but not for me. Yeah, not this year.
No.
Spills, for you, mate, any interest there in those Sydney boys? You said you haven't got any Swannies currently in the side, so I don't think I've swayed you there. But any quick thoughts on any of the Sydney defenders this year?
Well, the problem I have with them, Dan DR, is obviously Eagles' role is kind of dead because Blakely's destroyed it. And at that price, I mean, there are other guys that I would pick for 507K around the mark, like Dacos, Young, who we'll obviously talk about. I'd pick Himmelberg probably before Seagull. Like, what makes us believe that he's going to be a top 6 defender and go back to his best, because they do share it around there, and I just don't think he has that role, and he can be quite accountable up the ground as well now, which is really bad for his role. So looking defence, not really many players that I'd really consider, if I'm being honest.
There's someone we have to mention, and that's Will the Ghost Gould.
Far out. Don't get me started.
Apparently, he was at the game yesterday, but no one could see him because
Watching.
he just simply, does he exist? I'm not sure. And off camera, I was talking to DR about this, but what a kick in the guts to Will Gould that their recruit for the year was Aaron Francis, who basically plays his role. So you've got a guy developing in the seconds, thinking maybe I've got a chance here, and what happens? They get Francis in, who's a 170k, 2k defender forward. Might get a game if one of the McCartans or a Rampy gets injured, but it looks like even he's going to be ahead of Will Gould. So you sort of feel for the kid, but who knows? He could be playing for the Gold Coast Suns next year at this rate.
I'm surprised he hasn't requested a trade already. Honestly, just not done.
Maybe he has.
We had high hopes, didn't we? I think everyone selected on the bench that first rookie year. Real mature bodies, played against men in the sandful. It has never got a look in.
From a couple of Sydney guys that I know, or friends of Sydney guys I know, was that his fitness wasn't up to spec. So they thought he was competitive and stuff, but they didn't think he had the running game necessarily to keep up with that AFL high press, running. There's a lot of running even for a big guy these days, getting up the ground to help lock it in the forward line. And he just didn't have that running game. So that was apparently the knock on him. But, obviously he hasn't built his tank enough to even get much of a look in the ball.
It's basically a modern day Stewie G, honestly.
Yeah. You'd think if they were going to try and trade him, they'd at least give him a couple of games to see what he can do. But anyway, we'll see. It looks like there's going to be a whole lot of injuries before he gets a game.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
All right, let's get into the mids then. So we'll start off with the CBA count for yesterday's game. So we had Luke Parker, 572,100 with 70 cent CBA time. Gould, now this was the big prime mover here, 472,000 mid forward. Equal with Luke Parker, a game high 70% CBA time. We then had Rowbottom at 55%, Warner at 44%, Mills only at 33%. So a little bit of a change up there. Now, as always, we need to take these sorts of games with a grain of salt at times, I think. I can't see Golden getting 70% CBAs come the season proper. I can't see Mills only getting 33%. I certainly see Warner going up from that 44%. So I don't know how much we actually take away from this, but probably the main thing for me is Callum Mills. Will he be that Mr. Fix-It man? We know that he's a great VC option, massive ceiling, can go off, often close to 100 at halftime during games. But for me, he's gone down my ranking slightly here. Dan, do you have any thoughts maybe firstly on Callum Mills? Has he been on your radar this preseason? And has his game yesterday changed any of your thoughts in regards to starting him this year, mate?
Mills is always kind of on my radar. I absolutely love the guy as like a footballer. Like he's just got everything. He literally, his points per minute when he's on is like almost no one else in the game. Maybe Nick Nat or something, but he only spends 60% of time on ground. So he's just an incredible player. I started him over Lloyd in 2021 at D1 when Lloyd dropped off a bit and Mills became an absolute gun and everyone was trying to get him in. And he is definitely my best selection that year. I kept tabs on him last year, never got him in. I think he could obviously, like, if he does get to, that sort of 75, 80% consistent CBA load, he's close to a 120 player. He just is. I just don't know if it's going to happen because he's very unselfish. As soon as they, a team gets a run on 2 goals, he'll just put himself behind the ball. The runner doesn't even tell him. He just goes, you go into the CBAs, whoever, and I'll go and play behind the ball because we need an extra defender. So, I don't think you can pick him in Classic. I think keep him really high up there on your draft list. But I just, I can't pick him this year in Classic to start. I think, maybe look at getting him in if he gets down to that sort of 530, 540 after his early buy. So he is a good upgrade target, but I won't be starting him. I do expect him and Goulden, those CBAs, to reverse, though. Like, I can see Goulden maybe getting 30%. You know, like we might talk about him in the forwards, but I think on about 10 or 12% last year, Goulden averaged 85. So you can imagine if you get up to 30, 40%, he could be like similar to a Butters or something. He's got very good ball use. Butters is a bit more hard at it, but Goulden's still like a very, you know, he tackles, he's so clean, rarely wastes a possession. And I think he can do, he's the sort of guy that could average close to 100, only averaging sort of 22, 23 touches a week, just because he's got that ability to just be so clean with his possession and set up goals, like goal assists, that sort of thing, maybe kick the odd one himself. I like that.
Very damaging. Very damaging. Spills, how about Callum Mills? So average of 116.7 last year. Do you see any upside in selecting Callum Mills whatsoever this year?
Look, not really. And like, honestly, I don't understand the 7 people or the 7% of people who actually have selected him, because like, who here realistically is going to say, like, no, I don't want to Bonampally, McRae, Petrarca, Merritt, Brayshaw, Cripper, or my man Parrish. I want to pay an extra bit of money, $642K, for a bloke who's accountable at, look what we saw, actually at half forward now, not only half back, but look, his role is just honestly shambolic at times. I know, because I owned him late last year, and most of the time he would start on the wing and do absolutely bugger all for me, but then he would get a stint in the midfield and score me 25 points in 5 minutes, but then he'd be missing for another quarter. So like, just really inconsistent at times, just unreal when he's on and when the ball's around him, but then he can go nearly 10 minutes without getting a touch, which it's just unbelievable and honestly really frustrating to watch. I don't really see the value, and I think he just had a really sort of, or it was a year out of nowhere. I don't know if he could back it up. Like, he was nearly 700K. I think he actually did get to 700K. I'm not quite sure, but look, what's that?
He scored a 214, I think it was. His best score last year was like
crazy.
It's unreal, isn't it? Like, that is just some of the
7% have picked him, because the ceiling's definitely there. He's got some massive scores in him when he's on.
He does.
And when Sydney are well on top, like, I think he will stay in that role. He'll mainly, you know, be in those CBAs and he'll pig out. But as soon as they get challenged, he just gets thrown behind he throws himself. He said in a presser that he just does it himself. He goes behind the ball. Like, he's got license to do that. I mean, why would you do that as a midfielder? You've already wasted 4 years of your career in defence.
Yeah.
Mate, just pig out. Learn how to be a pig. Stay
exactly right. Exactly right.
Super coaches to worry about here.
It's funny, Spills, you mentioned that he can, you know, get 30 points in 10 minutes. I remember last year we were on the phone with each other, and he'd done absolutely nothing, I think, for about 25 minutes. And I remember saying,
that was the game.
Mate, keep the faith. And then he's just gone bang. And I think within that 5-minute conversation we had, you go, oh, actually, he's up to about bloody 35 now. So he's one of those blokes that can just go bang in a really short period of time. He's one of those blokes that loves a contested style of game. But yeah, if you're paying, you know, mid 600s with an undefined midfield role, I just can't do it myself. But yeah, look, a decent player, massive ceiling. And I think his average probably balances out because, as Dan mentioned, he has a game where he can go 180 to 200. He has those games where it's close to an 80. And at the end of the day, his floor and his ceiling balance out to around that 116 type average. So I don't see any upside with the pick. I think there's other players that we can select in our midfield at a cheaper price that do have a lot more upside. Might be price, it might be role, might be opportunity over Callum Mills. So no for a starting pick for me, but I can see maybe going off early for a couple of games and really rewarding those who select him as a VC. Luke Parker's another one, but I don't think he's worth discussing. Any thoughts on him? Skip past, do you think, boys?
Yeah, I think he can do 5, but that's not enough, is it? You know, like, I don't think he'll get DPP again unless Papley's injured and he has to play forward or something, but I can't see him DPP, at least early.
103.9 last year as a midfielder. It's just not enough. So not in consideration for me. If he gets DPP, certainly look to get him in if he's going around that 100 to 105, but not for me. We've got Rowbottom, 468, 500, 85.1 last year. Any thoughts, boys? Any interest whatsoever? Is the price just too awkward? Do we pay an extra 100K to even 50K for another bloke?
No, yeah. It's too awkward, mate. Not picking him.
Nah, can't see it. If you had DPP, maybe, but there's so many forwards to pick that, even then, like same as Goulden, like it's hard to pick Goulden for me, basically because there's so many other guys down there that can take. I mean, who are you gonna scratch Taranto for a Goulden? Like, you're just not going to do it. So it's more about who's around him than the pick itself.
All right, can I interest you in a Chad Warner? 532,700, 96.8 last year. I must admit, he's one of my favourite players to watch in the AFL. That mop that he's got up top, that burst from the stoppage, can kick a long goal. I just absolutely love this bloke as a player, really rate him. I think he's probably going to be their number one man in the midfield this year. Slightly concerned that he will cop some opposition attention. At his age, with his experience, I don't know how well or how capable he's going to be of handling a tag. Dan, any thoughts on Chad Warner? Could he be a breakout contender this year, or do you go with the Tom Green, or are there better options or maybe safer options than him? Do you think,
That's what I was going to say. I mean, you've basically got to put him up against the Tom Greens of this world, LDUs, Noah Anderson. Yeah, I can't pick him. I think he's sexy and he looks great. And I picked him, I think, in fantasy at the end of last year. He looks good. He's easy to see on the field. You follow him and you cheer on what he does. He's still quite young. I'll give him another year, and he probably will be one of those. He may break out next year. He could do well, but I'm just not willing to back him in to sort of. I think you really want 110 from a midfielder if you're going to start them. That's the sort of floor you're looking at. So I don't think he can do 110. Brayshaw, I think, in a similar stage did about 106 or something like that. So he may get to something like that, but I just can't see him jumping up to that 110. That's 15 points he did last year. And I can't see how he's going to do it. He'd need to get another 5 or 6 touches a game and maybe, a goal assist a game or something like. And I think there's a lot of other guys in that midfield. I mean, there's obviously that many midfielders that they start Mills on a wing. So, as opposed to someone like a Tom Green, who his CBA load's going to increase. You can't say that about Warner. He was already pretty much number one. He was already in the 70s. So you just can't see that upside. Where's he going to get those extra points from? Yes, natural improvement, this and that, but I just can't back him in. Someone that if he does start going well, you could look at as an upgrade target after his early buy, but not a starting pick for me.
Well, just before you end it, DR, also just on Mills as well, he scored, I think, 5 games under 90. So, at that price, it's not like we can't get him in for 560 or 70 at some point in the season. If you can show something good around the mark, you could probably trade him in after his buy. So I think he's still got the chance to be a top 8 midfielder. It's just that sort of ceiling with his floor. You can get him in cheaper. It's like a stock market with him, and also on Warner as well. I'll quickly add that his disposal efficiency average was 66 all season by foot and handball. So in fantasy, definitely yes, maybe in draft, but yeah, even if he does rack up 35, chances are he might only score you like a 110 because he does love a cheeky turnover. So he's pretty reluctant on almost hitting the scoreboard to actually get you a decent score. So I did want to just quickly mention that on those 2 players before we wrapped it up.
Just quickly, Warner, it's not rare for a kind of young midfielder to have bad, kicking. Like even Clary, when he started out and he was kind of that 21, 22, he used to butcher the ball a bit, and he's really improved that side of his game. So I can see Warner, as he's realising he's got a bit more time and he can slow down, and I think that's one area of his game he can really improve. That's probably his one upside that he could get better at that kicking side of his game. But just worth mentioning anyway. A lot of those young mids do sort of have pretty rubbish kicking efficiency. Even Petrarca, when he first went into the midfield, they end up in that sort of 60s, and then they can improve it into that sort of 70s and beyond as they get more comfortable in there. But just worth mentioning anyway.
All right. Well, I think that does us for the midfielders. Look, there is not much to talk about in the ruck. So Tom Hickey is set to miss the start of the season, and I'm not even going to talk about the peanut. And I tell you what, for the 122 coaches that currently have him in their side, I've got no words. I'd go as far as saying that anyone that's got peanut in their side is an enemy, is my enemy, because my distaste for this man cannot be described. So end of discussion. The peanut, he's getting no airtime from me. Absolutely no airtime. Lachlan Matandrew, 123,900 as a ruck forward, held his own, I thought. I think our rucks were pretty ordinary. The Big O and Darcy Fort didn't see any great stuff from them. But what do we think about Lachlan Matandrew? Dan, you watched the game, mate. As that ruck forward DPP swing, is he an option at, say, F8, even maybe possibly a playing R3 for us this year, mate?
No, I reckon like the Amati party is probably ahead of him. I think he might be slightly injured, but I think he gets a gig before Andrew. Look, if he does get a game, I just don't see his job security as that strong. And I think if you're looking at someone that might not score that well as a bench spot, you at least want that job security, like a Fergus Green or something. If you're not going to rely on them scoring well, then at least know that they're going to be there scoring something, if that makes sense. Like if they've got sketch job security and they might not score that well, it's just too many crosses, even as a rookie. So not for me. Could surprise in the next game or something. Like if Laddams goes down, maybe. If he's first ruck, chuck him on. But I don't see it happening.
Well, Laddams will go down or he'll do something stupid. I'll guarantee you. I'll tell you what, if this bloke plays 20-something games, Laddams, I'll shut down the channel. I'll tell you what, I'll shut down the channel. He'll do something stupid.
Don't do it, mate.
Nah.
What would you do? What would you do if Laddams just knocked on your door randomly for just like no reason whatsoever, like just to say good day? Like, would you invite me for a beer, or would you sort of kick his head in at the door?
Mate, I'd come up with the chest puffed out, open the door, look at the size of the man, and absolutely cower, I think.
Maybe I'll pick you up with like 2 fingers, I reckon.
So how are you, great man? Please forgive me for everything I've said.
He's like 198 centimeters and full of tattoos. You just keep your mouth shut.
Look, I talk up a big game here, but if I was face to face with the great man,
what would you do if he comes out with 2 140s for the first 2 games? And is just looking like an absolute killer at. Would you trade him into that R2 spot and ride the price rises, or could you just never do it?
Nah, mate. Nah, because he'll get a 1 the next game. He'll do something stupid, go, I don't know, he'll go gnoming or something. Have a few drinks, go gnoming, steal a few gnomes, CCTV footage. There's a big, he'll do something stupid. The most stupid thing you can think of, this man is actually capable of. So my prediction's gnoming. He's going to get caught gnoming after a few cold
ones. Sugar or something, you reckon? Maybe. Anyway.
I don't know. Let's get off this man. That's it for the rucks. Let's get into the forward line. There's only really one bloke I think that we need to quickly discuss here, and it is the great Isaac Heaney. We know what the story is with him. We've all been burnt in some way before. We've loved him. We've hated him. He's George's best mate, George's worst enemy. So he comes this year at 557,100, average 101.2 last year. As soon as he goes off, I don't have him, obviously. I started with him, then drop him for English. English goes absolutely downhill. Heaney starts to spike again, but he's always been a little bit inconsistent. I don't think there's any possible way that we look at Heaney when we've got those other 4 forward options. And I don't even need to mention who they are. We know who the 4 options are. Any thoughts on Heaney, or maybe more? Can you actually talk anyone out that's currently got them in their side?
Look, it's hard to make a case for Heaney. I was watching a podcast thing on YouTube with a guy, Mini Monk, and he had a very interesting take on fantasy sports to basically say that you need to create a narrative around these players as to why you want to pick them. You know, like you got to sell yourself. And like Heaney, there's just, I mean, he's an absolute gun player. None of us are questioning that. But as a super coach, he's just frustration, similar to a Butters, without really the upside of the price. You know, like he just gets himself in all. He always looks like he's about to hurt himself. I don't know. He's just one of those players. Amazing to watch, but not if he's in your super coach side. No. And the other thing is, like, even when he goes big, he tends to do it in the last 10 minutes of the last quarter. So he's on 67, and you're worried about this shit score, and then you look up and he's on 120 because he kicked 2 of the last 3 and gave 1 off and had a huge tackle and gets scaled up, and there he is at 124 or something, and literally 10 minutes before he was on 68, you know. So it's just a really hard one to get a gauge on. I think it depends on what's going on around him, whether people are injured in the forward line, how much they use him. I don't know. He's just, I can't pick him. I'd rather pick Gordon, to tell you the truth. He's got more.
I agree with that for sure.
Yeah. I just think he's a bit cheaper. He's got more upside, and he's more likely to get a run in the midfield, even if it's for short stints. I'd rather, you know, as that Sydney forward option, I'd rather go with the youth of a Gordon. Not that there's room for him with the Fab 4 and a couple of sort of mid prices. You know, McLean's basically locked down a spot in the forward line, and then you've got 4 other guys that are all very solid options. So there's only one other spot left in that forward line, and paying up 470 or 480k or whatever it is for Gordon, it just seems like too much money. It leaves other areas of your team looking super thin. So yeah, I can't even really consider him, but wouldn't surprise me if he became, you know, close to a primo this year, or at least serviceable. Yeah.
I think maybe in years past you may look at him, but when you've got Rosie, Taranto, Dunkley, Cogs, there's just no room for him in anyone's side, I don't think, anyway. And Heaney's one of those blokes where in the 1 week you can have both owners and non-owners frustrated with him, you know, in the one game. He's one of those players, isn't it, where everyone seems to hate him.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I love watching him, but I'd rather watch him and him not be in my team, you know, because it's super frustrating to watch him in your team. I mean, I've been through, I think I've owned him probably 4 or 5 times in SuperCoach. I think I owned him twice in one season I think I traded him out and then traded him back in again one year.
We know someone that's done that before.
Just get him back in. And then he probably missed the last 2 games and stuffed up my final series. But I won't be touching him. Maybe if he's like 420k after his bye and there's a forward spot there, I might look at him. But I'm not paying 500k plus for Heaney.
So that's it for the Sydney preview, guys. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be back with the Giants preview coming up right now.